All right, welcome back to Lifetime Wellness with Coach T, and today we're going to talk about making healthful choices. In our old textbook, this was Chapter 2, but since we're paperless now, we won't really be referring to that. There may be a little bit of that left over in this Prezi, but you can ignore it because if there's anything that's book related, I'm just going to tell it to you and tell you what, as usual, tell you what you need to write and what you just need to listen to and be aware of. This is one of my favorite subject matters strictly because I think it can be used every day. And not only every day now for you as a teenager, but later on too. I know that every time I do this chapter, it reminds me of something that I either am doing a decent job of or I need to do a lot better with. And it's a good daily reminder for me, or in this case, maybe a semester reminder. But anyway, make sure you got a pencil and a piece of paper out, and we'll just get right into it. So first we're going to do a little motivator to kind of get you to help you understand what we're talking about here, what we're going to be covering. So what I want you to do is write a 1 or 2 line definition of self-esteem. And it says, don't give me the books, we don't have to worry about that anymore. Now I would probably say, don't flip over to Google while you're still listening to me and try to copy the definition, because you're not going to get graded down if you put something that's a little bit off. I do want your own. Tell me what you think it is and how it affects your everyday life. If you need to pause this to do that, have at it. All right, in this first section, there's some terms we really want to focus on. There are health skills, communication, refusal skills, self-esteem, and stress. Go ahead and jot those down vertically on your paper. I'm going to give you the first one, and then the rest of them we're going to work through as we go. Also keep in mind that I'm not going to talk a great deal about stress right now. It has its own chapter, and it'll be its own discussion later on. Health skills, by definition, are the skills required to keep one or to keep oneself healthy by practicing it regularly. The skills required to keep oneself healthy by practicing it regularly. And then it goes on to say, health skills can be exercise, diet, abstaining from drugs, and other health hazardous environment. Exercise, diet, abstaining from drugs, and other health hazardous environment. That is health skills. Now we're going to break that down, so if you didn't get all of that from me, and again, you can use your phone here to or a laptop to go to a site and pick up that definition. So a couple concepts, don't even write this, just sort of generalizations about what we're going to look at here. Developing good communication and building self-esteem are health skills central to achieving total wellness. And then also, learning to evaluate messages from various media can help you make informed choices. And of course, we're living in a technological age now, so I'm going to make that focus more on the internet and social media. And finally, learning to obtain and evaluate information is an important skill in today's society. I know we'd all agree with that. It's easy to obtain information. The evaluation part is what's a little bit more difficult. So again, I'll try to help you come up with some tactics that'll sift through some of that bad stuff to get to what you really need. So to start out with, there's plenty of skills. The first one that this really focuses on is social skills. So write down the word social, and then write this. If you want to be health literate, learn how to communicate. And really underline or box or star the two phrases, or the phrase health literate and the word communicate. If you want to be health literate, learn how to communicate. Literacy to me doesn't just mean being able to read something, but also being able to comprehend it. So it's telling you in a social world, which is what we live in, we've got to know how to communicate. Effective communication expresses knowledge, beliefs, and ideas in many ways. And also, please jot that down. Includes saying no if the time arises. So, you can say no to things. No is one of the answers. There's plenty of answers that you can give, and you should evaluate your messages, and we're going to show you how to do that in the decision-making model later on this chapter. But you should evaluate your messages through a process, and then you'll be more confident if that answer is no to being able to make that decision. Now write down communication. It says be able to talk, but more important, be able to listen. I don't know if there's a more important statement for any of us from an educational standpoint, maybe than that one right there. We all, in some setting, like to talk, but and I would even venture to say a lot of us like to hear things. Listening is harder. So make sure that you make that a priority. I know you've heard that before, and it may sound cliche, but it's still important. Speak clearly. Regard how you speak. Listen. And be aware of facial expressions or gestures. If you want to jot that last one down, to be aware of facial expressions and gestures. I'll be looking for that because I think it's important. I think your body language, I know you've heard that phrase before too, goes such a long way in your relationships and your situations where you might be interviewing for a job. Your body language can go a long way. And it's not a negative thing, or it doesn't have to be. It can be very positive. So keep that in mind when you're talking about your gestures and expressions. They don't have to be bad. They can be very good, and they can be something that more emphatically proves your point. But you've got to make sure that you come off the right way. A lot of times when we're in a situation where we're talking to somebody, a shrug of the shoulders or a roll of the eyes, a slump of the shoulders, bad posture when you're sitting across from someone, all those things still communicate things that you don't want communicated. You could be a very bright individual, but that's getting blocked by people, what they visually see. So please make sure that you make it a priority to have good body language. Finally, refusal skills. Hang out with people that share common interests unless their interest interrupts your value system. Then get rid of them. First, try to say no. Explain why you're refusing. Suggest alternatives. Back up words. Not birds. Leave the birds alone. That's bad body language. Back up words with body language, and if all else fails, just leave the situation. That can be positive body language. You don't have to write down refusal skills. I think all of us are aware. Just write down that they're there, and that it's for your benefit. And when you're selecting friends, and it is a selection process, then remember that quality is way more important than quality. There is a society now that tells you that the number of followers that you have on Twitter or friends and likes that you have on Facebook defines you. Please don't listen to that. It's not true. So, mental and emotional skills are also part of the health skills environment. Respect yourself and respect others. When you're building self-esteem, in doing that, it affects everything you do, feel, think, and are. So try to examine the message that you send yourself. Are you one of your own worst critics? And, making sure that you keep yourself in check, that you're accountable, is important. But being critical of yourself crosses a line, and it makes it more difficult for you to be successful. So how do you counter that? Write this down. Focus on what you do well. If you're nervous about something that's coming up, think about past success that you've had and build on it. This sounds simple, and again, something that you probably already know, but it's a great reminder that it's very important at whatever level you're at, including me. So always remember what you've done well, and not only rely on it, but use it for future success. Stress management. Stress management is unavoidable. or stress is unavoidable. Stress management is important, but stress is unavoidable. So there's solutions. And rechanneling your energy, relaxing, and laughing are three of those. Again, you can write this down, but save that for a later chapter all to itself, because stress is way too big for one bullet. We're going to talk about it in depth later on. Total health skills. This is a big one now just because of social media. Write down accessing reliable information. Let me rephrase my stress there. Accessing reliable information. It says we live in the information age and we get plenty of messages, even some that conflict. How do you sift through the bad to find the good? So you get all of this stuff on social media. That's the nicest way I can put it. But it's not all bad. I've gotten to where I can look at Twitter now and get my Sports Center in about 10 minutes, where I used to had to sit down for an hour. And so I'm, in that case, it's a time saver. I can get news that way, but I can get bad too. So how do I sift through the bad to find the good? How do you do that? Well, here's 3 considers for your consideration. Number 1, write this down now. Don't miss this. Consider the source. Who is telling you this? Is it the person that likes to start drama? Is it the person that is always looking for some entertainment? Because if that's the case, then go somewhere else for your source. Don't let that run your life, and don't let those people get under your skin just from that. Now, trust me on that one. Your source is extremely important. Now, if it's a reliable source and they have proven to be so, then you can take the next step, which is to consider the angle. So even if the source is reliable, there has to be an angle to why they're telling you this, be it through social media, by spoken word, or whatever, text message or whatever. Why are they telling you this? There has to be a why behind it, and that could be very profound. It could be something that's important. It could be something that you're glad that they're telling you, or again, it could be from the wrong place. A good source, but just from the wrong place. So if you can't get past that, then again, don't freak out about it. If you feel like that the reasoning is good, then go to the 3rd consideration, which is to consider the problem, not the person. So even if this is legitimate, and there's something a person that you know is very reliable, they're telling you this because they care about you, if it's negative or even if it's positive. But if it's negative, instead of attacking people like we love to do on social media, attack the problem. And that's the solution, always, and the better one. Instead of going after the person, because that always involves emotion, burnt bridges, and things that are hard to overcome and take a lot of time to heal, you work on the problem. And through that, you tend to find better, more clear-headed solutions. And I can't stress this last part enough. Not that you even have to write it down, but be smart. You're being watched. I've got a good friend that is a college basketball coach. He is a recruiting coordinator for a Division I program that's very successful. And he will let you know in a hurry that there are, including his program, there are plenty of Facebook accounts, Twitter accounts, Instagram accounts, you name it, whatever, where they create the fake accounts to look at you. Because if they're going to consider spending their money on you, then they've got to know that you're in it for the long haul, that you are a reliable person, that you're a responsible person, that you're mature. And if they see that you've got bad health skills, then they're going to get rid of you as a consideration, and they're going to move on. And I know that's blunt, but that is a reality. But here's the good news. if you have social media and you are using it in the right way, then that can also be a beneficial thing for you in getting scholarship money, which is what we're all after. All right, so that was actually the first section of this chapter. Moving to the second section. If you want to take a break here, that's fine. We've got time to do this. I usually give over a week to get this chapter digested. But the second section, I really like it, is about making decisions and goal setting. And you've got two terms in this section. They're goals and action plan. I'll give you the definition of a goal, but I think it's on one of the later slides here in the Prezi. A goal is something that you aim for that takes planning and work. And you can even put time in parentheses there. A goal is something that you aim for that takes planning and work. And like I said, of course, those things take time. And then we'll get to the action plan. I'm going to show you that it's more of a visual model. And then there's 4 concepts here that you can see. Just take a look at those. I'm not going to read every one of them, and you don't have to write them down. But that's actually what we're going to be looking at in this section. So here's the decision-making model, and I would even suggest something here. As a matter of fact, if you do it, I'll give you extra credit if you show it to me. This is going to be broken up into 2 slides, but there'll be 6 total steps here. And when you finish this, or I finish going over it, and you finish writing it down, if you want to type this up and do it as in small a font as you can and cram it in there together, and then print it out and laminate it, or old-fashioned laminating, which is basically taking some tape and put it over top of it, and then stick that in your backpack or purse, it can be awesome for you on a daily basis. Now, I tell my students every year, when I'm looking at the decision-making model, it is not for me to decide whether to choose a Milky Way or a Snickers bar out of the snack machine. And when we get to nutrition, you might know that both of those can be detrimental if you eat too many of them. No, it's for big decisions. The decision-making model is for big decisions in your life where you need some help. And this is just the guideline and the model for you to go through. And I shouldn't say just you. I still use this when I'm faced with a big decision. It's better that it's done in order, and you'll see why chronologically here from first to last. It flows well and makes more sense. So let's jump right into it. Number 1, write down, state the situation. After you write down the actual bullet point or the step, you can write down what you need to write down. You don't have to write down all of it to help you understand it. But anyway, number 1 is state the situation. Examine the situation and ask yourself what decision needs to be made. Identify others who might be affected. So, obviously, you got to write down what it is. Sometimes it's good to just be able to stare at it. And then once you do that, and you know that you've got a decision to be made, you've got to also put down the other people that might be affected by your decision, because, like it or not, when we're making decisions, they affect us and they affect others. All right, so the second bullet is to list the possible options. So the first thing you're going to do is say, what choices can I make? And right off the bat, we always want to jump to the conclusion of making the choice a yes or no. But there's a whole lot more to it than that. Yes and no are obviously the clear-cut ones, but maybe later or not acting at all are also answers. So make sure that you understand that those are options, and I'll try to explain that a little bit more as we go through it. I used to think that saying maybe or later was either being wishy-washy or procrastinating, but in certain situations, if you've went through this entire model and you feel confident with that decision, then I don't think that's an issue at all. And I definitely think not acting at all is the best decision in a lot of different situations, especially at this time in your life. When you do that, share that with your peers. Try to find some people that will hold you accountable, not the people that just pat you on the back and tell you everything's going to be okay, but the ones that will actually hold you accountable, and then ask them for advice. All right, step 3, write this down. It says weigh the outcome. Are there both positive and negative results for every choice? You weigh the outcome or consequence for every option. Is it healthy? Is it legal? Does it respect myself? And does it respect others? If you answer no to any of those, healthy, legal, respect of self, respect of others, then stop, because you know your answer. Don't go past that. And Coach, I mean, this is easy, of course. Well, it is, except that sometimes we, again, have to look at it written down before we say, that's not such a great idea. And that doesn't seem like me. All right, so the last 4 steps. Step 4 is consider your values. Does it fall in line with you and your family and community's value system? Are you comfortable with the outcome? What will your family and friends think of it, and how will it make you feel moving forward? Your values are critical, and so you make sure that lines up with you and what you would normally do. And again, if you're not being honest with yourself, talk to the people that will be honest with you. So you go through all this, you get to step 5, and that's where you make a decision, and you feel good about it. You've got your data, you've got your outcome, and you should feel good about it. Don't forget step 6, though. Here's why. And that is evaluate your decision. If you don't evaluate, you're going to make it harder on yourself the next time, and you're going to have to do more work, because I do believe life is very cyclical, even though that these decisions may vary from time to time, and it may look a little bit different. A lot of these decisions will come back around. And when they do, it's not enough to just know what you want to do as an answer. It's also very important that you know who you affected. And there it is right there. How did it affect others? What did I learn? And would I do it again? Let's say you were moving. Let's say that you didn't let your friend know about that until right before you moved. And your relationship suffered because of it for a while. And then it comes up again, and a job situation happens with your parents or something like that, and years later you have to do that again. You may handle it differently with your friends than you did the first time, simply because of how it's hard to predict how other people are going to react, but that's what's so good about that step. You can always evaluate it and say, what could I do better next time? Even if I'm making the same decision, even if that was the right decision, what can I do better next time to help the outcome with others? And then the last thing we're going to talk about in this chapter, and we're actually going to produce, your grade obviously comes from these notes, and it's going to come from a project that I'm going to put here at the end, is about goal setting. I've already given you the definition, something you aim for that takes planning and work. You probably know that there's 2 types of goals. You also know that every goal involves planning, and planning involves time, which is why I had you put that in parentheses. But write down short and long-term goals. And then a quick definition. It's not just a time thing. It has to do with time, but you can't put a specific time on it. And what I mean by that is, in a short-term goal, you can achieve it fairly easily in a short period of time. And it says like getting homework done or getting a good grade on a test. Long-term goals pose a greater challenge, commitment to dedication, desire to succeed. It can be a series of short-term goals that add up. Doesn't have to be. They take more time. So you're hearing time, but a lot of people want an identification of that. Well, where does it become a long-term goal and a short-term goal? And my answer is right here. And if you need to pause to write some of this down, that's fine, but I'm going to move on, because it becomes very apparent that you need an action plan, first of all, to determine if you're dealing with a short or long-term goal. So when you do the action plan, you're going to select a goal. And now, you're going to come back to this slide. When I give you the project at the end, come back to this slide, okay? Because that'll help you. It'll make it so much easier on you to keep you organized. So you select a goal, you write down your goal, and you write down if it's short or long term when you write it down. You list what you'll do to reach it. This is a lot like a grocery list, not paragraph form or anything like that. It's bullet point style, just like this plan is. But you can't put 2 things down, even on a short-term goal, and expect to be held accountable to something. It's got to be thorough, and it's got to be thought about. This is not something you want to do in a half an hour. You need to take some time with it. It's not very intensive work. It's just a lot of brainstorming and planning, if you want to do it right. Identify sources of help and support. I'm going to go back to what I said about decision making. These are not the people that want to pat you on the back and hug you. Sorry, this is a coach coming out in me. But you need people that are going to tell you like it is. So write those people down here. You don't even have to love them. Just know that they're going to hold you accountable. It helps if you do. But these are the people that are going to tell you the truth. Okay? Set a reasonable time frame for achieving. Now, here's the big one. Establish checkpoints to evaluate progress. Because you probably think, well, once I set the reasonable time frame, then I know if I've got a short or long-term goal. And I would argue that this next one is more important in establishing whether you have a short or long-term goal. Now, listen to this very carefully. Even write it down if you need to. If you have a singular checkpoint or no checkpoint, you have a short-term goal. I don't care about the time. If you have a singular checkpoint or no checkpoint to evaluate the progress of your goal, you have a short-term goal. If you have multiple checkpoints to evaluate the progress of your goal, that goes back to the definition of a long-term goal, which means it's more intensive, and therefore you do have a long-term goal. It's hard for me to write down one checkpoint if my goal is to become a doctor or a fireman or a teacher, or even what can I do before I graduate as a freshman right now. That's got to be multiple checkpoints. So again, this takes some thinking, a little bit of brainstorming, and you'll want to write those down. Don't just write down the checkpoint, but write down what the checkpoint involves and why you're picking that time. And then finally, here's the fun part: reward yourself after reaching the goal. When you get there, give yourself something, be it something small, because your coach, I don't have any money. We'll get creative then. Do something fun, but it doesn't have to be a monetary goal. It can be, and talk to your parents about it. Maybe that's something that they're interested in, and you say, well, they're not going to give me anything. You don't know that. You've got to produce, and if you do that, they may very well give you something and surprise you. So, but make sure you've got a reward. Be creative if you need to, but write down what your reward will be. And of course, for short-term goals, they'll be a little bit less grandiose, and for long-term goals, they'll be pretty big. So be creative there. Have fun with it. A couple little things here about goal setting before we get done. Make your goals yours, not someone else's. You're not going to have as much success achieving goals if you don't make them unique to what you want. I love mom and dad. That's awesome. I love my friends. That's great. But they're not their goals, they're your goals. So keep that in mind. Secondly, be flexible. If you set the goal to run a 5K in a certain amount of time, and you walk out tomorrow and you're clumsy like I am, you walk off the sidewalk, sprain your ankle, and you've put a certain amount of time with that goal, the flexibility can be, I'm going to rehab the ankle, I'm going to reset the goal, reset my time frame, and even if I have to, reset the time a little bit. But don't be rigid if something comes up. And then be the best you can be. Stole that one from the Army. But let me re-emphasize the statement and say it a different way. Be the best you can be. This is not, again, this goes back to bullet one. It's your goal. This is two of my favorite quotes. This is my favorite quote. Success is a journey, not a destination. Why do I like it? Because it keeps me going. I think if somebody looks at this quote and says, they're getting it correct, if they look at this quote and say, if I'm going to be successful, then I have to never feel like that I've arrived. Because once I feel like I've arrived, that's probably about the time somebody's going to pass me and leave me in the dust. And I can't stand that thought. So I try to always remember that I'm always on a journey. There are going to be good days. There's going to be not so good days. but it's always a journey, and I'm always making progress. And as long as I'm making progress, then I'm moving towards success. And then I really like this one too. Set your goals to the heavens, so if you were to fall just short, you'll be somewhere among the stars. Set them high. I mean, I want to give you a quick story to end with here before I give you the project. Two people set the same goal, and my students have heard this before, so if you're alumni tuning in, you know what I'm about to say. Let's call them Student A and Student B. Student A decides in a year's time that he wants to bench press 250 pounds. And Student B decides in a year's time that he wants or she wants to bench press 275 pounds on a 1-rep max in the weight room. Both students bench press 200 pounds currently. They both set all their checkpoints and do everything they're supposed to do for goal setting, and they get to that year and it's max day, and Student A, who set the goal at 250, remember, does 260 pounds. Student B, who set the goal at 275, remember they both started together, does 270 pounds. So, normally you would say, both of them did great. Normally you would say, Student A set the better goal. Read this quote again, and then think about it. And if you're like me, you'll say that Student B is the person that you want in the foxhole with you. Because even though they fell just short, they set their goal way up there and they attacked it. And they got the most out of themselves that they could. And that's obviously what we're all striving to do. So that's sort of a story to just sort of bring that quote to life for you. Now, last thing, and probably most important thing, the project. This is what I want you to do. Get your pencil ready and write this down. Remember I said the action plan slide? We'll go back to it and I'll bring it up for you right now. While I'm doing that, I'll start talking about what it is. All right. I want you to set 2 goals. The first goal is going to be a short-term goal. All right. The second goal needs to be a long-term goal. You're going to use this action plan to show me that you know how to set a goal. I don't care what you pick. I've always been asked the question before, does my short-term goal have to relate to my long-term goal? The answer is no, but it can. So if you want to have a continuous deal where you do the short-term goal and then it bleeds into the long-term goal, that's fine, but I need 2 action plans, okay? So this is a test grade now. I'm not doing any quiz with this. I've got one ready, but I'm not going to do any kind of quiz with this because this is much better real-life relation to see that you got it, all right? So here we go. We've got notes for a grade. You'll be showing me those. I'll give you a date on that in class. We have the 2 goals, one short-term and one long-term. That's for a test grade. And then extra credit would be a laminated mini copy of the decision plan. I'm not going to take it, just show it to me, all right? And then you can keep it on your person. I've enjoyed my time with you today. I hope you have. Rewind this, start it back over, do whatever you need to do to get any extra notes. And I'll see you at the next chapter. Have a great day.